Good morning. It is good to see all of you today, whether you are online or joining us in person here today. I'm Karen Landsberg. I use she, her pronouns. This Zoom service is being recorded, and it is also streaming live to YouTube. For those in the sanctuary or in person today, please turn off all sound devices, or turn those devices off, turn the sound off, or just turn the devices off altogether. Please also note that you can see the subtitles and view the chat during the sharing from the heart portion of the service on the screen in the front of the room. We also ask that you make sure your mask covers your nose and your mouth while you're in the sanctuary. Last, for those online, I hope you will find a candle or a chalice. In a moment, we can light those together. Thank you for your grace and adaptability. As we all remember, it is about connection, not perfection.
Good morning. Let's sing together. We're starting the Gray Hymn Book, hymn number 40, The Morning Hangs a Signal. And if you're online, you can find the lyrics posted in the chat. I invite you to rise in body and or spirit. And let's sing this morning song together.
Worship service of the Olympia Unitarian Universalist Congregation. The OUUC community comes together in the mutual promises and possibilities of our covenant. We envision an interconnected world that is loving, just, and healthy. We commit to live out our mission to welcome and wonder, embrace and empower, bridge and become. Welcome, and thank you for choosing to attend today. My name is Ann Colbury. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a member of the worship arts team. Leading worship today is our guest speaker, Elizabeth Micah Gashir, our minister, Reverend Mary Gear, Troy Fisher, our music director, and Sarah Lewis, director of community and faith development. Elizabeth is a descendant of Dutch Protestant Christian working-class immigrants who were mostly farmers. She is an aspirant UU minister and chaplain whose sponsoring congregation is the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashville. Elizabeth moved to Olympia last September for a year-long chaplain residency at Providence St. Peter Hospital. If you are new to OUUC, welcome. We'd love to hear from you. Please take a moment to fill out a visitor card at the link in the chat, or talk to a greeter in the Commons after the service. We are grateful to everyone helping make worship happen this morning, including ushers and greeters, Julie Rosman making coffee in the kitchen, our nursery staff, our online breakout room hosts, our visible and invisible tech team wizards, and so many others. After the service, everyone will have the chance to discuss reflection questions offered by Elizabeth. We invite those online to join a breakout room for a virtual reflection circle. This is a chance to get to know a small group. Each breakout room will be hosted by someone to help make sure everyone knows each other and has a chance to share. For those in the sanctuary, feel free to bring the reflection questions into your discussions, or if you would like to join a group, gather in the youth room. The reflection questions are printed in the order of service. Wherever you are, we hope you'll join the discussion. Now for a quick auction update. The clock is ticking on our online auction with 7 more hours to participate. That's plenty of time to register, bid on over 100 wonderful items, and contribute to our 3 important causes. Already we've raised $10,280 for Ukrainian relief and $1,195 for new gutters. Thank you. Thanks. Last night's lovely dinner and live auction at Indian Summer were a rousing success. 15 hot items sparked lively bidding and a wonderful time. Thanks to all who gathered to help celebrate and forge a bright future together. We will announce combined auction totals soon. In the meantime, thanks to auction coordinator Melanie Ransom and all who organized, donated, and are participating. Together, we are building a new way. Remember, online bids will be sealed at 5 p.m. tonight. There are many opportunities to stay connected with our OUUC community. Please check the website regularly. If you have questions or need help, please check in with a staff member. Now, as we prepare to worship, let us open our hearts and minds. Welcome, everyone. It is good to be together.
Good morning. In a time of so much loss, we have lost another OUUC member. Some of you may know that Gary Tobin has died. Gary died peacefully at home in the wee hours of last Wednesday morning. He had struggled with several health concerns for many years. He was cared for by his wife, Celia, supported by hospice, and Gary had just celebrated his 80th birthday a few days before. Gary was born in Ballard, Washington, the second of 3 sons in a Catholic family. He attended Catholic school as a child and a teenager, graduating with a scholarship to St. Martin's here in Olympia, which was an all-male college at that time. Gary's voice scholarship to St. Martin's required that he sing in the Glee Club and travel on recruiting tours for the college. Music was always a part of Gary's life. His mother was a musician who encouraged Gary to sing in their church choir. And throughout his life, Gary sang and played drums in dance bands, performed in several musicals, and sang in many choruses, some with his wife Celia, including the OUUC choir. At the end of his life, Troy led several of us in singing to Gary to ease his transition. Gary graduated from St. Martin's and went directly to the University of Washington at Seattle to earn his Master of Social Work. Celia says Gary decided to be a social worker when he got in a bit of trouble as a teenager, when he and a friend took a neighbor's car for a joyride. Before that, Gary thought he might be a priest. But the social worker at the detention center was so kind and compassionate that Gary changed his mind and decided to study and practice social work. Gary served in the U.S. Army during the Vietnam War, counseling returning veterans and their families. He went on to practice at the Western State Hospital, then in the community mental health system. He worked for many years as a counselor for group health, then part-time for the state's family services before he retired for good. Gary has 4 children, 2 from his first marriage and 2 with Celia, and 4 grandchildren. His love lives on. Gary was a longtime friend of OUUC who celebrated his Catholic roots. He and Celia married at OUUC in the Tumwater Church building, and they raised their children in this community as well as a Catholic community. Gary brought his deep baritone voice to the choir and his charming presence to OUUC. Gary lived a life of service and will be remembered for his many gifts, musical and otherwise. We will miss him, and we are grateful for his life and presence. Celia would appreciate no calls for now. To send a card, you can get Celia's contact information on Realm or just contact the church office. So let's just take a breath and pause a moment as we light a candle in memory of Gary Tobin.
This morning, and every Sunday morning, we join Unitarian Universalist congregations around the world in lighting a chalice, the symbol of our faith tradition. Please join us as we light our chalices together with these words by Michael Tino. The flaming chalice was first used by the Unitarian Service Committee as a symbol of life-saving refuge for people fleeing persecution in Europe. As we light this chalice, we invoke the love that called people to put their lives at risk to save others. May we be vessels of life-saving welcome.
Good morning. I'm Elizabeth, and I use she, they pronouns. I am glad to be here together. Our opening words are a poem offered by Reverend Lynn Unger. What if you thought of it as the Jews consider the Sabbath, the most sacred of times? Cease from travel, cease from buying and selling. Give up just for now on trying to make the world different than it is. Sing, pray, touch only those to whom you commit your life. Center down. And when your body has become still, reach out your heart. Know that we are connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. You could hardly deny it now. Know that our lives are in one another's hands. Surely that has come clear. Do not reach out your hands. Reach out your heart. Reach out your words. Reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch. Promise this world your love, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, so long as we all shall live. Come, let us worship together.
Let's sing together again out of the Till Hymn Book, hymn number 1014, Answering the Call of Love. If you're here in the congregation using the hymn book, just remind you that the composer of the song has asked us to sing answering the call of love instead of his original lyrics of standing on the side of love. If you're online, the words are printed in the chat, and I invite you to rise in body and or spirit, and let's sing together.
I'd like to invite up Kate and Lark Dorsey and godparents Francie and Eric Van Marth. Welcome. The ceremony that we now share is both ancient and timeless, affirming that we all have a responsibility for the care and nurture of our children. It is our task to give children a world of peace and justice in which to grow. It is our task to share with them our ideals and hopes. It is our task to welcome them into this congregation and into the fullness of life. Traditionally, this is a time to recognize a child by name. What is the name you have given this child?
Lark Elizabeth Dorsey.
Lark Elizabeth. Your names reflect the wholeness and complexity of human life. Lark is a name of a bird, noted for its clear and sweet song. May your voice be clear and sweet. Lark is also a word for a merry adventure, a carefree frolic, an escapade, and a lightness of touch with a bit of mischievousness. Now, Elizabeth is a name that you share with your mother, Kate. It is an ancient name of Hebrew origin, meaning a gift of God. It is the name of royalty and carries the weight of duty, service, and loyalty. Lark Elizabeth, may your life reflect the reality of your name, play and duty, fun and serious, carefree and purposeful, sweet and strong.
Kate, in presenting Lark here today, you invite all of us to share some of the joy and responsibility that is yours as a parent. You seek our support in your dedication to the task of fostering, with love and guidance, the fullest unfolding of Lark's personality. Your task may not always be an easy one, but you accept this service to another life, trusting that your own life will be fuller and richer in consequence. And may you know that you have the love and support of this community.
Kate, do you now promise that to the best of your ability, you will help this unique and special child to an appreciation of truth and beauty, uprightness of character, and love? Will you protect their right to selfhood and at the same time help them to understand the selfhood of others? For any of us to become loving and capable adults, we need care and nurture from many people. Francie and Eric, Kate has asked you to accept the special honor and responsibility of being godparents, called to share your love and your wisdom with Lark. Do you then, to the best of your abilities, intend to supplement the care and love of this parent in helping this child grow in wisdom, in kindness, and in courage as she faces the challenges of her life? Do you pledge your love so that Lark may grow to trust herself and others? OUUC members and friends, do you promise to support this child and her family through all of the experiences of life, to delight in Lark's accomplishments, share in her sorrows, and encourage her as she grows and changes? Will you provide her with an opportunity to develop her faith and answer an understanding of life and the sacredness that dwells in it? We'll unmute those online so everyone can join in saying together, "We will." The online folks were with us, I am certain. Water is an age-old symbol that reminds us of our connection to every other living thing and to this earth. And so, Lark, we bless you with this water. May your mind be open to the wisdom of this world and of your experience. May you grow in conscience, the ability to think things through, and nurture curiosity.
And Lark, may your hands be open to embrace the gifts of life and of this world. May they help you to take care of your body, mind, and spirit, and be good to yourself and others.
Lark, may your heart be open to all that is, and may you grow in compassion. You will know contentment and discontent, joy and sorrow, anger and deep love for your life. Feel all your feelings, my child, for they are good gifts.
Each flower is unique in all its natural beauty, separate and distinct from all other flowers found in creation. This rose serves as a reminder of the inherent worth and dignity of every human being, this child, as well as each one of us. It symbolizes our hope that you will unfold and blossom in all your own unique and natural beauty.
May we go forth grounded in our dedication to Lark and Kate. May we remember that Lark will grow up in the world that we are making. May we mold our lives in accordance with beauty, truth, goodness, and love, all those things that we wish for Lark. May we help them find their own fulfillment and pass into their keeping the torch of life. With these wishes and intentions in our hearts, may we go forward in joy and thanksgiving. Amen. We came together in community this morning, bringing all that is in our lives. In this space, we draw on the strength of our community to hold everything that we bring here with us.
In this space, we share from our hearts what brings us joy and sorrow, what brings us worry and delight, what makes us afraid and makes us dance. Let's open our hearts to the complexity of life, our own and others.
If you have something that you would like shared in a Sunday service, please look for the link on the online worship page or just send me an email and we'll bring it into the service next week. You will hear a drum beat as we share today. It brings into our awareness that our individual hearts beat, and together we create the heartbeat of our community.
As we share, we place stones in the water, stones holding the complexity of our lives, placed in the water of community. Right now, I invite you to take a breath as we open our hearts to receive the complexity of all that is in our lives and community today.
We extend our hearts and care to the family and friends of Gary Tobin, who died last Wednesday. Gary was a vibrant member of this congregation and of the choir. He leaves a lot of love behind. Gary, may your spirit be at peace, surrounded by music.
We place a stone for the 1 million people who have died of COVID-19 in our country as of this week.
This morning, we extend our hearts and care to the people of Buffalo, New York, who suffered a heinous, racially motivated hate crime. May they know that we are with them in spirit this morning. Ginny Taylor shares the loss of her older sister, Mary Lou, who died suddenly last Wednesday at the age of 89 in the house that she and her late husband built many decades ago in Georgetown, Colorado. Mary Lou shared her creative talents in so many community events and activities. She was a loving presence for those in her life, and she will be missed. Ginny, we hold you and your family in our hearts. And Mary Lou, may you rest in peace.
Liz Clement asks for all the prayers and goodwill we can muster for her beloved niece and family. 3-year-old Hope will have surgery this week to help close a very large hole recently found in her very small heart. Liz shares that Hope is a fighter who has been showing everyone around her what grit and perseverance and courage and joy look like from the moment she was born, and who has already defied many odds. Please keep Hope, her parents, and her sister in your thoughts and send good wishes in whatever way you do. Now, if you are online, I invite you to share from your heart by entering in the chat. This is the time to share all that you wish, joys and sorrows, and whatever else is shared from the heart.
And for those in person today, I invite you to come forward if there's something you would like to share and bring into this community. Please come forward through the center aisle and return to your seats by the side aisles. You may place a stone in the water as you hold your sharing in your heart. Let's hear the heartbeat of our community as we open our hearts in love and care.
We place a stone in the water for all that has been shared from the heart, a stone holding the complexity of our lives, held in the water of community. We place one more stone in the water for all that we hold in our hearts that remains unspoken.
I invite you now into a time of meditation, reflection, and prayer. Infinite web of life, spirit of love, great mystery from which we come and to which we return. In this moment of stillness, may we pause to quiet our minds, bodies, and spirits. Let the quiet wash over us. In this moment of stillness, may we pause to notice the cycle of life, the mystery that is life and death. Let the mystery wash over us. In this moment of stillness, may we pause in love and gratitude for new life and for lives lived. Let the love wash over us. In this moment, may the spirit of life and love wash over us all. With deep gratitude we pray. Amen, and blessed be. Let's hold a moment of silence together.
Sing hymn number 352, Find a Stillness. The lyrics can be found in the chat.
we pray or meditate, we deepen our gratitude for what we know as sacred in our lives and in our world. Each Sunday, we demonstrate our gratitude by joining together in service to our community and to something greater than ourselves. Our collected offering today truly makes a difference. Half supports the ongoing work of OUUC, which is also supported by our regular pledges. Most of the other half is shared with an organization that serves our community in harmony with our Unitarian Universalist values, and a small portion goes to the OUUC Ministers Benevolence Fund to help support those in immediate need. For example, in March and April, our generosity gave $2,431 to the Olympia Mutual Aid Partners, $347 to the Ministers Benevolence Fund, and $2,778 to OUUC. For the months of May and June, our Share the Plate recipient is Homes First. Homes First envisions fostering diverse and inclusive communities that people are proud to live in and have in their neighborhood. Since 1990, Homes First has successfully created affordable rental housing in Thurston County. They currently house 277 extremely low-income people in safe, stable, and affordable homes. You can participate in today's offering by making a donation online through the church website or by texting the number that will appear on your screen in a moment. You can also mail a check to OUUC, or if you're here, you can place an offering in one of the ushers' baskets. Our community partners need and appreciate our financial support, and it is heartwarming to contribute to causes that reflect our values. May the offering now be generously given, as it will be gratefully received.
Together now.
chaplain. I can hold space for my own emotions. Whew, thank you. And thank you for your generous gifts. Talk about a way to be embraced without physical touch. Just have a choir at your back singing I love you. I invite you to take a deep breath with me. Today's reading is an excerpt of a poem called Wash Your Hands by Dory Midnight, who identifies as a community care practitioner, ritual leader, writer, and deep listener. In the poem, she references elecampane, which, for those of us not familiar with it, is a medicinal herb native to Europe. We are humans relearning to wash our hands. Washing our hands is an act of love. Washing our hands is an act of care. Washing our hands is an act that puts the hypervigilant body at ease. Washing our hands helps us return to ourselves by washing away that which does not serve us. My friends, it is always true, these things. It has already been time. It is always true that we should move with care and intention, asking, do you want to bump elbows instead with everyone we meet? It is always true that people are living with one lung, with immune systems that don't work so well, or perhaps work too hard, fighting against themselves. It is already true that people are hoarding the things that the most vulnerable need. It is already time that we might want to fly less on airplanes or not go to work when we are sick. It is already time that we might want to know who in our neighborhood has cancer, who has a new baby, who is old with children in another state, who has extra water, who has a root cellar, who's a nurse, who has a garden full of elecampane and nettles. It is already time that temporarily non-disabled people think about people living with chronic illness and disabled folks, that young people think about old people. It is already time to stop using synthetic fragrances to not smell like bodies, to pretend like we're all not dying. It is already time to remember that those scents make so many of us sick. It is already time to not take it personally when someone doesn't want to hug you. It is already time to slow down and feel how scared we are. We are already afraid. We already are living in the time of fires. This ends our reading. When we are afraid, for whatever reason, human touch can be one of our resources for soothing or dissipating that fear. Science has now demonstrated what humans viscerally have known since our species' inception. Infants literally cannot survive without human touch. Children deprived of touch have strikingly lower cortisol and growth development levels. A stressed person's brain quiets in response to a hand being held. And as my friend Joy often reminds me, 20-second hugs release oxytocin in our brains. When we think of embrace, we often think about hugs or touch or affection. The word itself comes from the Latin words that translate as in the arms. Yet, as we are all well aware, COVID-19 has drastically affected our relationship to physical touch and proximity, even with loved ones. By 2021, studies showed that people who experienced touch deprivation during lockdowns suffered from greater feelings of anxiety and loneliness. And we have had and continue to have to weigh these cost benefits of mental and physical health risks as individuals and communities and a society. These are not easy scales to balance. As vaccinations rolled out in 2021 and public health restrictions lifted, many of us have enjoyed hugging more, friends, and maybe even strangers again. We've savored gathering indoors with loved ones, perhaps cozied up around a kitchen table or cuddling on a couch again. We've gone back to eating out inside restaurants and enjoying live performances. And this is all very human and very good. We need human touch, and we need proximity to other human beings. And yet, I worry that we have forgotten that, as Dory Midnight puts it, there are always people living with one lung, with immune systems that don't work so well, or perhaps work too hard fighting against themselves. Or at least some of us have. I know this is true because I myself forgot such critical awareness a few weeks ago. I was talking on the phone with my best friend, we'll call her B for the sake of her privacy, and we were discussing our plans for a reunion in Minneapolis in June when one of our best friends from college is getting married. Now, Minneapolis is the beloved city in which we all came of age as young adults. And I've been really excited about this wedding because I plan to take a full week off of work and go to reconnect with my community there. During our phone call, B tentatively asked me this question. So, I've been wondering, would you be willing to structure your visit in a way that allows us to spend the whole time together? Now, what you need to know about B is that we share a lot of the same identity markers, except that B is immunocompromised and already lives with several chronic health conditions. While she was able to choose to get vaccinated and boosted, she is not able to risk getting COVID-19 as much as she can help it because she cannot willfully risk adding long COVID to her list of chronic conditions. You see, she doesn't fear the virus's symptoms or hospitalization. She simply knows her body and her medical history and is afraid that she would be one of the few % who incurs long-term health issues. So during our phone call, she was effectively asking me, hey, best friend, would you be willing to meet me where my risk levels are at? Essentially to mask indoors and be mindful of touch and proximity, so that we can maximize our time together in Minneapolis. And what was my reaction? Whew, resistance. In that moment, I said something like, maybe, but there's this thing for me to consider, and I'm not sure about that. Now, to be very quickly clear, I don't think there was a right answer and I gave a wrong answer. There is nothing black and white about navigating a pandemic era that has become an endemic. We are living in a gray world. And as I processed my reaction in light of this theme of embrace with a few friends, I still came to realize that my resistance was about the fact that I had grown quite comfortable over the previous months with my not-so-restricted lifestyle. I was having fun going to an occasional show, unmasked, indoors. It was kind of a surreal experience. And I had long been doing small indoor gatherings with friends unmasked. So here I was, immediately resistant to embracing the risk level of my best friend, who is one of the people I love the most in the entire world, for 1 week, for the sake of my own comfort. Wow. What struck me most as I held this truth about my reaction was how it stood in stark contrast to the time during the pandemic when so many of us felt risk collectively and were collectively afraid and anxious and unsure. When we did cease from travel, and we learned to rewash our hands, and we learned to wear masks and or stay home and or stay 6 feet apart as acts of love and care. And that's when I knew I had already forgotten the most valuable lesson that this pandemic had taught me: how to embrace the most vulnerable in my everyday actions. As I lamented that I too had become somewhat apathetic in this exhausting and confusing time in which we find ourselves, I was reminded in my work as a chaplain that the word apathy comes from the Greek, a plus pathos, meaning without suffering. This etymological insight helped me understand how it was that I had forgotten my most valuable pandemic lessons so quickly. I had already forgotten how it felt to be at risk myself when the virus was new and highly contagious and unknown. And I had already forgotten the ways in which I had experienced suffering when all my grad school classes moved online and I could not hug or touch any of my friends, when I watched as the number of cases and deaths rose exponentially every day, when I was afraid that I would get sick, and far more afraid that someone I loved who was more vulnerable or older than me would get sick. Perhaps I forgot so quickly because I am one of the privileged few in the US who has not had anyone I'm very close to die of COVID. So that is a suffering I have not known. Yet I am inclined to believe that I am not alone in my forgetfulness. That, in fact, it is part of the pattern of collective amnesia to which we Americans, especially European Americans, are predisposed. This is by design, and it is a topic that my former dean at Vanderbilt Divinity School, Emily M. Towns, explores at length in her book entitled Womanist Ethics and the Cultural Production of Evil. She terms this forgottenness and discusses how it is a strategy of those in power to create and retain that power. As she writes, to forget, which is another way of saying to deny as well, is to be able to feign ignorance and a lack of agency. In other words, if we apply this to Dory Midnight's poem, forgottenness is to pretend or to forget or to deny that we don't always have neighbors living with one lung, with cancer, who are old, who are immunocompromised, or who have new babies, or who need healthy food. Naturally, the antidote to forgottenness is to remember. Dean Towns calls this a strategy of counter-memory, describing it as an act of looking at the past for micro-histories to force a reconsideration of flawed, aka incomplete or vastly circumscribed histories. An example of a micro-history in this case would be for me to remember the small ways in which I too experienced suffering during the COVID-19 pandemic that I just described. And perhaps more importantly, to sit with those feelings, how it felt to be at risk, to be vulnerable, to be afraid? How have you suffered? When we can sit and tenderly hold our own suffering, we find a portal, which some call spirit or God or the universe, and that portal can take us from apathy, where we were once resisting suffering, to compassion, where we can be with other people in their suffering. After all, compassion literally means to suffer with. So now, as I contemplate Bea and our Minneapolis visit, my best hope is that I can make decisions, whatever they are, from that place of compassion. Being mindful that for her and plenty people, the suffering caused by this virus has not ended and does not yet have an end date. And even more importantly, as Dory Midnight reminds us, it is always already true that people were living with immunocompromised systems and disabilities and chronic illnesses and pain before the pandemic. And sadly, it will always already be true that those same folks will be living long after the pandemic. So how do we embrace one another in love and in care with compassion in this ever-changing and complex world in which we find ourselves? Today I discussed how remembering or counter-memory can be a powerful antidote to forgottenness and apathy. This is one tool in our toolkit. Another tool in our toolkits is to remember in a deep and bodily way that our friends, families, neighbors, fellow community members at OUUC have different levels of risk and needs, and thus may or may not want to be embraced without touch. UU congregations are using a very handy tool to help facilitate this remembering. There are these stickers out in the commons and a sign that looks like this that help express what an individual's boundaries are for the day. So we've got a red sticker that means no contact, please respect social distancing. A yellow sticker means please ask me what's comfortable, cautious. And a green sticker that means contact welcome, please continue practicing consent. During our reflection time after the service, you will have an opportunity to engage a question about embrace. And if you're comfortable, I invite you to grab a sticker from the Commons and practice what these interactions might look like. For example, I was with my laser wearing a green sticker, and so you might notice that and say, "Hi, Elizabeth, can I hug you?" And I would say, "Yes, I would love a hug," in this case. May we always already embrace one another with care and intention, with or without touch. Let us be in silence together.
Thank you. Let's sing together hymn number 323, Break Not the Circle. The lyrics can be found in the chat, and I invite you to rise in body and or spirit. Let's sing together.
comfortable. As we come to a close today, please remember that online and in-person reflection groups will gather next, and then the Q&A on the budget will take place at 11:30. If you have a chalice or a candle at home, please join me as we extinguish our chalice with another excerpt from Wash Your Hands by Dory Midnight. When fear, or I would add uncertainty, arises, and it will, let it wash over your whole body instead of staying curled up tight in your shoulders. Contract and expand. Science says compassion strengthens the immune system.
Amen.
It is time to care for one another, to pray over water, to wash away fear every time we wash our hands. Go in peace.
Let's join together in singing our unison benediction.